You remember how we used to talk about the big lie, Trump's denial of the legitimacy of the 2020 presidential election and his attempt to change the outcome of that election in the states, in the courts, and ultimately with an attempted coup by his followers on January 6, 2021, the day on which the election was to be certified? Well, the big lie's back, but now it's forward-looking. It's the big lie 2.0, and it's already underway. Trump and his henchmen are not waiting for next year's midterm elections to undermine them. He's already starting, because what Trump does so well is to sow procedural chaos. And that's what we're seeing in this year's elections, which are 3 days away. Last Friday, the Justice Department announced that it will be sending so-called federal election monitors to California and New Jersey for Election Day, the sort of people we send to other countries to monitor the safety and security of their elections. In California, they're headed to 7 counties, ostensibly to oversee the voting on Proposition 50, California's ballot initiative about redistricting, which is a direct challenge to Trump's own efforts to have Republican-governed states undertake mid-decade redistricting ahead of the midterm elections next year to gain Republican seats in Congress. In New Jersey, the election monitors are going to Passaic County, a community that's 43% Hispanic, for a gubernatorial race. Now, there are a few elections on Tuesday, so the choice of California and New Jersey, states in which the elections are run and monitored by Democratic administrations, is telling. Notice that no monitors are being sent to Virginia, where Republicans control state government, which suggests that this might not really be about oversight of free and fair elections at all. If Trump and his foot soldiers once again manufacture a fake crisis, claims of corrupt elections and rigged ballots and fraud everywhere, he can use that manufactured crisis the way he did before as the justification to interfere on a much bigger scale in more states and counties and districts that tend to vote for Democrats in 2026 and in 2028. In plain terms, this is a rehearsal. California Attorney General Rob Bonta immediately pushed back against the DOJ's announcement, saying his state will monitor. The federal government monitors themselves. Governor Gavin Newsom called it a federal intrusion into a state-run election, voter intimidation disguised as federal oversight. Election attorney Mark Elias put it bluntly, quote, "This is not the Merrick Garland DOJ. This is not the Bill Barr DOJ. This is Donald Trump's Department of Justice, and they're not sending out these monitors to protect minority voting rights. They're sending them out because they're trying to test the fence," end quote. Trying to test the fence. The Trump administration is training you to accept federal agents, and we don't know whether these ones are going to have badges or will be armed, so that by 2026 and ultimately the next presidential election in 2028, something that is entirely not normal feels routine. We've lived this moment already. In 2020, Trump tested the fence. He tested whether he could overturn the people's vote. He failed. So for the big lie 2.0, you can expect some major improvements to the effort to be in place. Non-compliant officials across the federal government have been replaced with loyalists. The Pences are gone. The Vances are in. The GOP is no longer a political party, but an extension of Trump, populated, as in many authoritarian states, with friends and family of the president. And that makes another coup attempt not just possible, but likely. Trump's Truth Social feed is already constructing the narrative that he can use to justify election interference. Back in August, he announced a movement to eliminate mail-in ballots and voting machines, declaring, quote, "Remember, the states are merely an agent for the federal government in counting and tabulating the votes. They must do what the federal government, as represented by the President of the United States, tells them," end quote. They must do what the federal government, as represented by the President of the United States, tells them. That's not just false. It's wildly authoritarian. The truth is actually the opposite. Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution gives states, not the president, control over elections, stating specifically, quote, "The times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. But the Congress may at any time by law make or alter such regulations." The Congress may alter such regulations, not the president. And for the record, the federal government is represented by the people, not by the man posting glam shots of bathroom renovations while millions of American families brace for skyrocketing health care costs and a funding lapse for food benefits. But that historically has been Donald Trump's strategy, to claim powers he doesn't have and call any election that he doesn't win corrupt. Just last week, he used the NBA gambling scandal to relitigate the 2020 election, comparing alleged cheating in the NBA to Democrats cheating in elections, calling the 2020 presidential election a far bigger scandal. He demanded that his DOJ investigate Democratic lawmakers with the same, his word, gusto that federal agents used to pursue the gambling case, once again repeating the lie that the 2020 election was rigged and stolen. At the very same post, in the very same post, he smeared California's Prop 50 vote as totally dishonest. As New York Magazine noted, quote, Trump's post isn't an effort to influence the Prop 50 vote, which he knows his team is going to lose. It's a warning that he will regard the passage of Prop 50 as illegitimate by definition and will use it along with his totally made-up allegations that Joe Biden's 2020 election was fraudulent to change or at least delegitimize the midterm elections, end quote. And that is the 2025 play. Normalize the tools and the narrative for a much bigger assault in 2026 in the midterms and in 2028. I keep saying 2028 for a reason. While Trump constructs and finesses the big lie 2.0, he's testing muscle on the ground. Since June, as you know, he's deployed National Guard units to Los Angeles, to Memphis, and to Washington, D.C. He's fought in court to send them to Portland and to Chicago. He's openly floated invoking the Insurrection Act to sidestep governors and courts, boasting, quote, I could send the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. I could send anybody I wanted, end quote. Once again, Trump is conditioning the public to accept armed federal presence where people live and eventually where they vote. Zoom into the states, and this soft rolling coup becomes even clearer. Right-wing groups have built giant voter file databases with the help of AI-driven software that enables mass challenges to voter registrations, according to the Brennan Center. We've already seen hundreds of thousands of voter challenges in Georgia, thousands in Pennsylvania and Michigan and New Hampshire and New York. Big data makes the process very cheap and fast, so the voter purges will grow with every cycle. And as we've been discussing since the Texas redistricting debacle, they're gaming electoral maps. They're using highly partisan and in some cases apparently racial gerrymandering to tilt elections in favor of Republicans before a single vote is cast. This is what seeding procedural chaos looks like. Okay, that's a lot of bad news. That's the first thing in the morning, so I don't want to upset you too much. There is actually good news. The good news is the outcome of this is not predetermined. Trump's rants reveal the card that he has to play. He's telling us step by step exactly how he plans to rig the system and then bury the evidence. And that gives us something really important, the ability to identify the threat in advance, the ability to strategize and prepare, the ability to organize. Endless speculation about the big lie 2.0, will he or won't he? It's a trap. It's a waste of our time. When people actually show up, that's what works. In 2020, lawyers, judges, and ordinary citizens forced the certification of the presidential election in the states. In Wayne County, Michigan, ground zero for the first nullification attempt. When officials flirted with refusing to certify the election, the public flooded the meeting. The plot collapsed the moment that locals caught wind of it. Republicans were willing to subvert democracy in the dark, but not so much in front of an engaged public. That's lesson one for 2025. Pay attention right now so that you can mobilize fast. So what does that look like? Well, volunteer as a poll worker or an election observer. Register voters through local civic organizations. The math is simple. The more people vote, the harder it is to overturn those votes. Number two, create voter buddy systems, especially for neighbors who fear intimidation at the polls. One tactic experts are worried about is the potential deployment of ICE agents to polling places. You can see why some qualified Latino voters, never mind Latino voters, anybody who's a little bit brown like me, wouldn't want to get caught up in a raid, thrown into detention until they can clear their names just for going out to vote. Build local rapid response teams, groups of ordinary citizens who show up as they're doing in courts right now, at county meetings, at certification hearings, at voter drop boxes. Your physical presence is a deterrent to improper and illegal behavior. Follow what's happening in other states. That's why these elections on Tuesday are so important, whether you live in one of them or not. The military deployments, attempted voter purges, the election monitors, consider them all trial runs for the bigger play, the one that's going to happen right where you live. And finally, Do not let Donald Trump and Republicans normalize talk of a third term. A third presidential term is illegal, full stop. So when that one uncle floats a third-term loophole conspiracy over Thanksgiving dinner, don't let it slide. And if your uncle insists that it's doable, hand him one of these, a pocket constitution, opened to the 22nd Amendment, Section 1, which reads, quote, "No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice." The second power grab is already underway. It's being rehearsed right now in Chicago's streets, at California's polling places, in courtrooms across the country. But we can stop it because we're reading the script in real time and because we've stopped it before.